You guys loved the last video, so welcome back to another episode of Hidden Mechanics in the Batman Arkham games, where we uncover each and every secret attack, cool mechanic, insane glitch, and just overall some really obscure gameplay features that I guarantee even the most veteran players out there have probably never heard of. These range from some pretty useless information that's just cool to know, all the way to one that will legitimately help you achieve world records in Arkham challenge maps, and I'm not even kidding when I say that. So let's just get started with mechanic number 10. The secret variation of the inverted takedown. Now this might legitimately be one of the most useful hidden features in the entire Arkham series, but quick note, this secret attack only works in Arkham City and Arkham Origins for the most part. So when you're on a gargoyle with an enemy directly under you, instead of hitting the inverted takedown button by itself, hit the takedown button and the drop attack button at the same time. The addition of the drop attack will cause Batman to instead do a ceiling takedown from the gargoyle rather than the regular inverted takedown that we're all used to. This version also happens to fix all of the very problems that come along with a normal inverted takedown as well. The animation is much shorter, this takedown is actually somewhat silent and doesn't really alert enemies for the most part, and the best one, any gunman nearby will be completely stunned by the shockwave effect, obviously preventing you from getting shot, but also allowing you to get an even more damage on top of that. Now, you probably thought that was it, right? Well, there's actually so much more to this mechanic than it seems at a quick glance, and it can be used in so many different ways than just through drop attack inverted takedowns. To pull these extra moves off though, you first have to understand why this attack even works in the first place. So to get it out of the way, if you thought that this was an intended feature for this game, I wouldn't blame you because I did too, but turns out, no, it's actually a glitch. Huge shout out to IceMage for explaining this to me and giving me this footage, but essentially, when you use a drop attack and inverted takedown at the same time, the drop attack takes you out of the inverted takedown position on the gargoyle to obviously start the attack animation. However, the game still registers that a takedown was used while the player is in this floating-like state, so instead of doing a regular inverted takedown like normal, Batman just automatically defaults to a ceiling glass takedown instead. Further proof that this is a glitch is that if you try this on a gargoyle positioned over a glass ceiling, the glass won't even break when you use the attack. Batman just sort of phases through it. You know what all of this means though? Any move that takes Batman slightly out of a specific takedown position will make the game do this takedown instead. You can use quickfire gadgets, a glide, the drop button, and pretty much anything else combined with the takedown button to make this attack work. On top of this, you don't even have to be on a gargoyle to pull this off. In fact, I was testing this and I paired a ledge takedown with the quickfire rec gun, which actually makes Batman clip through ceilings and walls to do this specific takedown, which is absolutely insane to say the least. Unfortunately, the downside is that this is where the game starts revealing more and more how glitched this mechanic really is. In most takedown positions, it will do nothing more than bug out the original animation instead of doing something cool, so if you want to mess around with these different takedowns, then go for it, but for most players though, probably just stick to using the inverted takedown variation of this attack. Also, IceMage wants to call it the drop takedown, so I guess we'll just go with that. In at number 9 is the hidden animation slash feature behind the Ultra Cape Stun. Just as a reminder, the Ultra Cape Stun is when you use 3 Cape Stuns in a row, or alternatively, in Arkham Knight, you can also just hold down the Cape Stun button instead to pull this off as well. So what's the hidden feature to it? Well, if you immediately follow up this Ultra Cape Stun attack with the pick up enemies mechanic, which is activated by pressing both the right trigger and the Cape Stun button, it will actually cause Batman to grab the flying thug by his legs, pull him out of the air, and place him stunned right in front of the player for an easy beatdown. Keep in mind that timing is pretty tight to pull this off. You have to pick up the thug right after finishing your Ultra Cape Stun for this animation to play. Overall though, definitely a really cool animation that I'm sure most players never saw for themselves while playing. I know I certainly didn't. Mechanic number 8. Batarangs. Obviously, such an iconic gadget has to have some hidden features throughout the Arkham series, right? Starting off, we have the delayed Batarang knockout. So I'm sure we all know about these charging thugs in Batman Arkham Knight and how to quickly take care of them. Simply throw a quickfire Batarang while they're charging at you and they'll be knocked completely unconscious. However, enemies don't actually have to be in a charging motion for this to work. If you start a special move, takedown, or evade out of the way while a thug is charging at you, this will obviously make him cancel his charge, right? Well, after canceling his charge, you'll have a small time frame where you can still throw a Batarang at him for an instant knockout even after he's completely finished charging. It's basically just a free KO. That may be the most useful hidden feature for the Batarang, but it's certainly not the only hidden feature though, because did you know that certain characters can actually catch Batman's Batarang? If you throw and aim a remote Batarang at members of the Bat family such as Robin, Nightwing, or Catwoman, they'll actually be able to catch it just as Batman does. On top of this, if you first throw a Batarang into an electricity field and aim the Batarang at Batman, he'll still be able to catch it even when it's electrified. This proves that Batman's suit is insulated against electricity voltage, something that was also shown to be true in Batman Arkham Origins during a cutscene. Speaking of electricity, no, throwing the Batarang through a wreck blast will unfortunately not electrify the Batarang. Trust me, I tried. However, it does actually cause the wreck blast to completely vanish into thin air, which is interesting because usually the wreck will travel infinitely until it hits the target you aimed for. Alright, mechanic number 7, Nora statues in Mr. Freeze's Arkham City boss fight. Now this was something that I've covered before in videos like my Arkham City without takedowns run, but it's far too interesting to leave off this list, okay? Essentially, if you take a look around the environment, you'll notice that Freeze created a bunch of Nora ice sculptures all around the room where his boss fight takes place. These aren't just aesthetic though, because you can actually interact with them. By throwing a gadget, or even doing something like punching them, you can completely destroy the statue. This will obviously make Mr. Freeze extremely angry, where he says things like this. Not only does it give cool dialogue, but it will also work to distract Mr. Freeze because he'll actually stop whatever he's doing to go over and examine the destroyed ice sculpture. Alternatively, you can also make Mr. Freeze destroy the statues himself as well. Simply run past one of them while Mr. Freeze is shooting at you, and he'll occasionally misfire, break the sculpture, and say this to Batman. Overall, it's some absolutely insane attention to detail, just one more reason to add on to why this boss fight is so great. Coming in at number 6, you can get the Batmobile to Founders Island early. Now, this one's a little different than all of the other mechanics on these lists that I cover, but I still think it's super interesting, so we're gonna go over it anyway. So normally, as you know, the bridges to Founders Island don't actually open up until much later into the story, meaning the Batmobile can't access the island until a certain point in the game. However, shout out to Gotham Paladin for teaching me this, there's actually a way to get the car here much before that certain point in the story. After unlocking Miagani Island, you can find this ramp right next to the crash that Oracle was involved in, and using this ramp allows you to jump to Founders Island from Miagani. Unfortunately, at this point in the game, this area is completely blocked off for the Batmobile due to these poles, so you can't actually access the ramp. Or can you? You see, directly behind Elliott Memorial Hospital and next to this bridge, there's a small little crevice between these two pillars. Simply use battle mode to boost off the ledge, and then quickly switch back out of battle mode so that you can use the turbo boost, and you should be able to sort of throw the Batmobile past the poles without issue. This of course then gives us access to the ramp, so all you have to do is use the jump, and there you go, you've got the Batmobile onto Founders Island way before you're supposed to gain access to it. This allows you to explore the entire area, fight Cobra tanks, complete side missions like Riddler or the bomb diffusions, and much more. But wait, how do you get the Batmobile back to the other islands if, say, you want to bring a villain to the GCPD and finish their side mission? Well, right next to the bridge between Founders and Bleak Island, you can use the power winch to lower this structure and create another ramp, meaning we can use that very ramp to jump back over to Bleak Island and bring whoever we want to the GCPD. Now, while this is a really cool thing to exploit in this game, if you want to try this out for yourself, then do it at your own risk. These exploits that allow you to do things out of order, especially with the Arkham games, can lead to broken saves, much like, if you remember, one of my Arkham City saves is completely broken after beating a Riddler room early. So I would recommend doing this on a new save that you don't really care about if you plan on trying this. At number 5 we have grappling, which actually has 3 hidden features that I want to go over, along with a quick bonus feature too. The first one, I kid you not, I literally just learned about, and I wish I'd known sooner because it is so cool. So basically, tapping the run button while grappling will obviously activate your grapple boost and immediately send Batman into a gliding state, right? Well, if you do this exact same thing while holding down your dive bomb button, Batman will launch straight into a dive bomb instead of a glide. This of course plays a completely different animation and allows you to build up even more gliding speed than before. On top of that, you can still launch yourself in any direction as well by using your joystick, meaning you can do something like a reverse dive bomb straight into a bunch of enemies, or pull off some insane thread the needles. It's just a really cool feature to have in your arsenal and makes traversal even more fun than it already is. Alright, grappling feature number 2. Ever wondered how to make Batman stop automatically climbing over ledges in Predator rooms when armed thugs are literally right there? Well, it's actually quite easy. When you grapple to a ledge or rooftop, simply hold down your grapple button and instead of letting it go. This will force Batman to go into a hanging position rather than automatically climbing up, hence how you can avoid getting shot if there's thugs right there. Finally, the last hidden feature of grappling is one that most speedrunners utilize a lot, which is grapple canceling. When you're in a grapple, simply hit your keep stun button to detach the grapple and then start gliding, which will grant you a ton of speed without having to do anything special. Repeating this throughout traversal basically allows you to maintain a high speed while steadily moving forward at the same height. No huge verticality changes through grapnel boosting or dive bombing here. And like I said, speedrunners use this all the time, so I'd assume that it's the fastest way to move around in most cases. As for the bonus feature, I actually just discovered this one while getting footage for the others, but whenever you hold in your grapple button right after finishing a grapnel boost, Batman will automatically cancel his glide right after starting it. I have no idea why this works with the grapple button and only with the grapple button, but hey, it's not useful at all, so I guess it doesn't really matter and is just more cool info for you guys to learn about. Mechanic number 4, hidden attacks on brutes. Now just like the last one, this category also has 3 different secret features that I want to cover, so let's get started with freeze punching. For brutes, you normally can't just straight up punch them, you have to keep stun them first and then go for a beatdown, right? Well, if you throw a freeze grenade at the brute and then punch him, it will also act as a brief stun and allow you to punch him normally. From here, what you can actually do is just keep repeating the same strategy of freeze grenade, punch, and the brute will be completely knocked out in just 5 hits. Definitely something extremely useful to know. The second feature is one that I forgot to mention in the last video. Remember how double tapping your punch button during a drop attack makes Batman do this variation of the drop attack instead? Well, this also works on brutes too. Much like the freeze punch mechanic that we just talked about, doing this drop attack punch exactly 5 times on a brute will completely knock him out just like that. Now obviously though, it's not ideal to keep repositioning yourself onto a vantage point over and over again just to knock out the brute solely through drop attack punches, but that's not the point. The point is to try and do this drop attack punch at the beginning of a combat encounter so that the brute already has a lowered invisible health bar going into the fight. This makes him even easier to take out through the freeze punch strategy, requiring 1 less hit before KO. And just in case you're wondering, both of these hidden features do in fact work against minigunner enemies as well, except minigunners don't actually have an invisible health bar like every other thug, so the drop attack punch does no damage and the freeze punch strategy is only useful if you're going for an infinite combo, unfortunately. Finally, we of course have to throw in the back claw special takedown at the end. Using this special upgrade on brutes, which is triggered by holding down quickfire back claw, will play a completely different animation and also finish off a brute instantly. Now that is overpowered. Also, in case you hadn't noticed up until this point, each and every single one of these hidden mechanics actually prevents brutes from going into their second phase. Normally, you'd have to do a beatdown or a special combo takedown 2 times to finally knock them out, but all of these moves allow you to finish off brutes all the more quicker and easier. So whichever one you opt for, just make sure you're at least using one of these 3 attacks to defeat brutes. I swear they go from a problem to a genuine cakewalk by using these mechanics. In at number 3 is Explosive Gel. Now I'm sure we all know how Quickfire Explosive Gel received a massive downgrade in Arkham Knight. It went from being borderline useful to just absolutely no point wasting your time on it, right? Well, maybe it's not so useless after all, but I guarantee it's not for any reason that you're probably thinking. You see, in Predator sections, once you run out of voice changer charges, there's really no way to safely control where enemies go or place themselves. Well, that's where Quickfire Explosive Gel comes into play. While aiming at an enemy, you can actually just continually spam Quickfire, and the explosion will just keep knocking thugs back into a certain desired position. Say they're not close enough to a remote hacking point. Well, you can just Quickfire Explosive Gel them until they're in the correct position to be taken out without ever having to leave your vantage point. The best part, unlike most gadgets that will alert thugs to your location, since Explosive Gel was obviously never meant to be used this way, you don't even have to worry about getting spotted or shot by using this strategy because enemies won't even notice you. Yeah, I know, it looks really dumb, but it's also genuinely useful at times. Remember how I said that there was something on this list that will legitimately enable you to break world records? Well, mechanic number 2 is precisely that, something that I like to call wreck punching. Just for reference on how this could break world records, I picked out a certain combat challenge in Arkham City, Rooftop Rumble Extreme to be exact, to showcase this mechanic. From what I could find online, this is Batman Arkham Video's score after 1 round of this combat challenge, the guy who's widely considered one of the best Batman Arkham players ever. Here's a different player's score after 1 round as well, and this very person ended up going on to rank number 58 in the entire world with this run. Well, This is my score after 1 round. Yeah, that's 3 stars in a combat challenge after just 1 single round, which also happens to be more points than both of the runs I just mentioned combined. So how exactly did I do that? Well, like I said, through my strategy of wreck punching, which some of you might already know about since I already mentioned it in a short over a year ago. Essentially, when you use the wreck gun on a shield enemy, it briefly lowers their guard and leaves them open to a quick punch. After the punch, they'll fully recover, so you can't just keep punching. What you can do though is wreck blast the enemy again and repeat this attack string of wreck blasting, punching, and so on and so forth. Now, what does this do exactly? Well, since you can just continually keep getting critical hit after critical hit without the shield enemy ever getting knocked down, he's basically just a punching bag that enables you to build up massive combos off of just one singular thug. Eventually, he will be KO'd since every thug has an invisible health bar, but you get in way more hits than you normally would, hence the much bigger combos. And since your combo serves as a multiplier in challenge maps, yep, I think you know where this is going, these higher combos increase your score on a massive scale. Now look, this attack string doesn't come without its own issues though. For some odd reason, it bugs out shield thugs and they'll just straight up not do the majority of their attack animation sometimes, leaving you with no time to react, and the shields themselves will also actually start to deal damage to you now just by touching them, even if they're just lying on the ground and not being used. I have no idea why these attacks occur specifically when you use wreck punching and only when you use wreck punching, but despite those minor issues, it's a completely busted attack string to use if you want to go for really high scores on combat maps. And finally, in at number 1, the final mechanic on this list is the mechanic that makes Batman specifically target grounded enemies. I'm sure the majority of you guys already know that in Arkham Knight, you can punch enemies while they're knocked over and lying on the ground. However, in combat this is fairly useless for the most part since Batman has actually been coded to prioritize punching thugs that are standing up because they're obviously much more of a threat to the player. But did you know that there's actually a way to make Batman prioritize attacking these grounded thugs instead? All you have to do is simply hold down your crouch button while in combat. The addition of crouching will force Batman to specifically target enemies that are lying on the ground rather than standing up, so you can keep punching these down thugs and knock them out. It really is that easy. Anyways, that concludes our second episode of Hidden Arkham Mechanics. Like the video if you enjoyed, stay tuned for part 3, and I'll see you next time.
Please fight me, come on.
Yeah, come here.
Why
can't I
I killed myself. You didn't even get that kill.
Finally!
Oh,
No!
Nobody kills me but me.
I got him.